Welcome back to another explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're tearing down a massive assumption about investing, and it all centers around this fascinating concept of value in growth. We're going to uncover the surprising and honestly kind of counterintuitive truth that fast growing, highly hyped industries often end up completely destroying investor wealth. Meanwhile, it's the boring, seemingly stagnant markets that are quietly minting money in the background. It turns out growth only actually creates value when the underlying conditions are absolutely perfect. So think about your own investment strategy for a second. When you're looking for a place to put your hard-earned cash, do you naturally gravitate toward the next big thing? The booming industry with off-the-charts consumer demand? I mean, it feels totally logical, right? We naturally assume that explosive economic growth is an automatic ticket to high shareholder returns. But the historical data paints a completely different, almost backward picture. When we blindly chase growth without scrutinizing the underlying value, we're basically walking right into a trap. Let's look at why that happens. It really all boils down to this absolutely crucial rule of capitalism from the legendary investor Benjamin Graham. He said, high returns attract capital and capital destroys returns. This right here, this is the hidden mechanism that Wall Street analysts miss entirely because they persistently confuse growth with value. It's not just about how fast a market is growing on the surface. The real issue is how much money is flooding into that market to chase that exact same growth, which fundamentally destroys the underlying value for everyone else involved. That brings us to Section 1, the growth paradox. Take a look at this number, 2%. Since 1960, U.S. corporate earnings have compounded at just 2% a year in real terms. But over that exact same time frame, the overall U.S. GDP grew by 3.1%. That is a massive gap when you let it compound over decades. It definitively proves that broad, general economic growth simply does not guarantee wealth for shareholders. Why? Well, because when an industry is booming, companies start issuing a ton of new shares to fund their expansion, they dive into massively expensive mergers, and a whole wave of new competitors rush to IPO just to get a piece of the action. So short, the industry pie is definitely getting bigger, but it's being sliced into so many tiny little pieces that the individual investor actually ends up with less. That is the core paradox of our explainer today. An industry can show massive, explosive growth, but generate absolutely zero value for its shareholders. Which leads us nicely into Section 2, unveiling the capital cycle. Let's move to and see how this builds using a totally fictional company. Let's call them Macro Industries. They make widgets. Right now, the widget market is incredibly hot, and Macro's returns are just sky high. Now, watch this mechanical loop play out. Step 1, high returns attract capital. Wall Street absolutely loves this apparent value, so Macro effortlessly raises a ton of money to go out and build a massive new factory. Now, this initial growth phase seems super valuable, but it's actually setting the stage for massive value destruction. Because, step 2, overinvestment increases capacity. Every single other widget maker out there sees those same high returns and they do the exact same thing. Then comes step 3. Let's say 5 years later, all these shiny new factories open their doors at the exact same time. Suddenly, there is a massive excess supply of widgets flooding the market. Prices crash, margins completely evaporate, and returns are literally destroyed. Which brings us to the final step. Step 4. Bankruptcies happen across the board. Capital exits the industry in utter disgust, total capacity shrinks, and only then do the surviving companies slowly start to see their returns recover. That whole loop, that is the capital cycle. And that takes us to Section 3, trapped by human nature. Okay, so if this cycle is a well-known, almost mechanical loop, why in the world do really smart people keep falling for it? Well, it all comes down to how we frame a problem. Psychologists talk about this concept of the inside view versus the outside view. Highly specialized Wall Street analysts almost always take the inside view. Why? Because they are literally paid to predict next quarter's growth, not long-term structural value. They put on these highly specialized blinders, zoom in intensely on their specific sector, and just sort of lazily assume that current demand trends are going to extrapolate upward forever. But the really smart investor? They take the outside view. They step back and act as a generalist, looking at historical parallels and base rates to survive the market volatility. They know for a fact that no boom lasts forever, and that supply is always, eventually, going to react to demand. Taking that inside view traps us in some seriously devastating psychological blind spots. First off, we become absurdly overconfident in our ability to forecast future demand. We trick ourselves into thinking the current hype is going to last a lifetime. Second, we suffer from something called competition neglect. Basically, a CEO builds a massive new factory, totally assuming they are the only genius in the room with that idea. They falsely believe their specific growth is going to create immense value, completely ignoring the fact that a whole stampede of competitors is rushing in to crush their profit margins. Third, we just extrapolate cyclical trends in a straight line right to the moon. And finally, you have to look at the skewed incentives fueling the whole thing. Investment bankers are getting huge upfront fees for arranging the financing for all these new factories, right? And CEOs are raking in massive bonuses for growing their revenue empires, completely regardless of whether that growth actually benefits the long-term shareholder.
Let's explore this further in Section 4, From Cod to Commodities.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is we can look at a historical example to see this exact cycle in action, centuries ago. The cod fishing industry illustrates this loop absolutely perfectly. Back in the 16th century, curing fish at the ports was a huge bottleneck, right? So port owners were making an absolute fortune because supply was tightly constrained. But then, technology took a massive leap forward. In the 1920s, Clarence Birdseye invented food freezing. Add to that the invention of steam trawlers and sonar in the 1930s, and suddenly, pretty much anyone could catch, process, and freeze a virtually unlimited amount of cod right there on the boat. So what happened next? Massive overinvestment. Everyone rushed out, borrowed heavily, and bought these incredibly expensive boats. Then, to pay off those massive debts, they had to frantically overfish the waters, which completely crashed the market price of cod. The brilliant new technology didn't actually make them rich, it completely hollowed out the industry's profits by eliminating those crucial barriers to entry. The whole thing spiraled until governments literally had to step in with quotas just to save the fish.
Fast forward a bit to the recent commodity supercycle, which was heavily driven by China's massive economic growth back in the 2000s. In 2001, global mining capital expenditure was hovering right around $30 billion. By 2011, lured in by these sky-high commodity prices and the shiny promise of endless demand, that number skyrocketed to roughly $180 billion. We're talking a six-fold increase in just 10 years. It was a period of completely unprecedented industry growth, but ultimately it ushered in an era of massive value destruction. Just like those cod fishermen buying up all the steam trawlers, the mining companies bought endless amounts of heavy equipment and broke ground on massive new mines all over the globe. And because mines take years, sometimes a full decade to actually build and come online, this massive wave of capital expenditure baked in an inevitable, disastrous supply glut that absolutely crashed the commodity markets years later. This entire phenomenon perfectly captures the harsh underlying reality of the capital cycle. There is no cure for high prices like high prices. It's so true. High prices naturally make people greedy. They rush in, they violently overinvest, they flood the market with an absolute ocean of new supply, and that exact supply drives the prices right back down to earth. The boom literally engineers its own bust. Growth without supply constraints, it's just an illusion of value.
Which flips the script for Section 5, the power of consolidation.
So if hypergrowth is a trap, where do we actually look to find real value? Well, if hyped-up, fast-growing markets destroy wealth through intense overcompetition, it turns out that the boring, deeply consolidated industries are very often where the real, durable money is actually made. Let's look at a market that Wall Street historically thought was a complete snooze fest: beer. While the tech industries were completely obsessing over top-line growth and burning through massive amounts of cash, the global beer industry wasn't really growing much at all. Instead, they focused entirely on value creation through consolidation. Between 2002 and 2008, through a really strategic series of massive mergers, just 4 global players managed to capture half of the entire global market volume. So why does that massive market concentration actually matter for us? Because when just 4 players control half the market, they stop fighting each other to the death in this race to the bottom. In fact, they actually reduce their overall brewery capacity. And doing that gave them massive pricing power against the retailers. If a huge supermarket chain wanted to stock beer, they pretty much just had to pay whatever the big 4 were asking. Furthermore, these companies showed immense balance sheet discipline. This is the exact opposite of the overinvestment trap we just saw with the cod fishermen and the mining companies. It is the true definition of a value strategy operating perfectly in a mature market. By halting that endless cycle of building new unnecessary factories and eliminating all that excess competition, they created a highly profitable, deeply sustainable supply-side advantage, completely ignoring the noise of the Wall Street growth hype machine. And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, the supply-side advantage. So the crucial point is, how do you actually track these markets intelligently to protect and grow your wealth? The biggest difference really just comes down to forecasting. If you truly want to find actual value in growth, you have to stop trying to forecast demand. Most investors out there spend like 90% of their time agonizing over impossible demand questions. Will China buy more copper in 10 years? Will millennials fly on more airplanes? Look, forecasting demand is a highly uncertain guessing game that is way too heavily driven by hype and emotion. Instead, you need to forecast supply. Supply is incredibly predictable. You really just need to look at the capital expenditure, the CapEx of an industry. If a sector is suddenly spending massive, unprecedented amounts of money building new capacity, that is a huge warning sign to run away. But if an industry is intentionally shrinking its capacity, cutting costs, and consolidating, pay very close attention. Tracking this capital cycle on the supply side is going to be far more lucrative than trying to guess uncertain future demand.
I want to leave you with a final thought to really reflect on as you evaluate your own habits. Are you out there aggressively chasing sexy growth trends and jumping into crowded markets right before the bust? Or are you looking for the hidden, boring power of a constrained supply, where real, sustainable value quietly multiplies? Next time you see a booming industry splashed across the front cover of a financial magazine, remember the widget makers. Remember the cod fishermen. Look right past the growth hype and ask yourself, where are we in the capital cycle? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.